You are listening to the Booktrospective Podcast, a podcast for all types of books. And even though we read all types of books across all different types of genres, we want to give a disclaimer. Many of our books and a lot of our content sometimes is intended for mature audiences. And we don't believe in censorship, but we do want our listeners to have the opportunity to decide if our episode or podcast is good for them. So with that, let's get into the episode. Hey, it's Dominique.
And Keely.
And you are listening to Booktrospective. And this week we are covering part 2 of Queen of Shadows by Sarah J. Maas. So we're not recording the same day, but we are recording the next day. So we really don't have any updates. But this is our last, well, it depends if we record our next episode too. This may be our last record in this building. So Keely's moving, which is the address that we posted. So we've already updated our address, but Keely's moving, so.
Thanks, heavens. I'm excited.
Yes, this is not the most conducive space for a bookstore, so
yeah.
It'll be cozy again and like more like what she wants. So that's good.
Now, don't mind me opening my food, you guys.
She's getting her dinner. Okay, so we're going to get directly into the episode this week. Just as a quick recap, we covered... I'm chewing muffin. We covered part 1 of Queen of Shadows. Oh wait, first of all, let me back all the way up. Happy New Year.
Oh yeah.
Wait a minute, I forgot this episode is dropping in the first of the year, so happy 2025. I hope you guys I don't know, if you're new year, new you, then good for you. If you're new year, same you, also good for you. As of December 17th and recording this, do not know what part of me or what me it's going to be. But yeah, happy 2025.
You're starting the new year off right, listening to us.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's dope. That's super exciting. I hope you guys had great holidays, happy new year, festivities. I think when this app comes out, it's the 6th. So if you've already fallen off the New Year wagon, that's also okay as well. But yeah, so happy New Year. I think that's all I have about New Year stuff. But yeah, okay, so back into the episode. I'm so sorry you guys had to wait 2 weeks for this, but we covered last year. We covered part 1 of Queen of Shadows, which is Lady of Shadows, and it's chapters 1 through 47. And so we are going to cover part 2, which is called what? It's in here somewhere. Which is Queen of Light, and it is the rest of the chapters of the book. I don't know. My number started over, and I don't know. I think it's through chapter 89. I think 89 chapters is what we have. So we also forgot in the last episode to give trigger warnings, just in general. I kind of put them in the middle. I'm sure I'll put them on the episode descriptions, but with all SJM books, I mean, we have sexism, racism, classism, slavery, war, murder, assault, kidnapping, sexual assault, attempted sexual assault. Yeah, I mean, demons in this one, witches. I don't know if that's a trigger. I don't know. Sometimes I don't really know what triggers are to people. So yeah, those are the big ones. But I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So if you have not, you know what? If you're here and you haven't done anything else, welcome. Okay, nope, you're good. So we are going to go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to do just a general summary. In part 1 of this book, our gang kind of reunited. So Aelin, no longer going by Celaena. She is back in Adarlan from Winland, and Rowan has joined her in Adarlan. They saved Aelin, her cousin, from being executed by the king because he was found to be a rebel. Dorian has a collar on, and he has a demon inside of him. Kael is a rebel, and he has teamed up with Nezrin, who is a new player in this book. She is technically part of the guard, but she is a rebel as well. Lysandra turned out to be one of the good guys. She was the courtesan that was with Arabin. Arabin is no more. We got him up out of here. And what else? What else happened in the first part of this book? Oh, Manon and the witches are in Morath, which is where they're brewing like all kinds of like demon. Oh yeah, thank you. They're like birthing demons and stuff, and so like Manon's really struggling like with like keeping her witch clan in check because they're like really pissed, but also like she doesn't want to like go against her grandmother even though she knows it's wrong, and she's kind of taken like a little human girl under her wing because she does have like witch ancestry. So that's like a very, 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 very brief summary of the first half of this book. So part 2, Queen of Light, here we go. We open up with Manon, and also like at the very end of part 1, we killed Arabin. Praise Aelin, and Lysandra. So anyways, we open with Manon, and she's going to see Duke Parrington. He wants another coven. So remember, he had a coven of Yellow Legs, and they have had like several demon babies. But this time he wants Black Beaks. He wanted Black Beaks the first time, but he for sure wants them this time. He says that the Yellow Legs are recovering and they will be able to see them soon. And all like Manon can think of is like Astrid telling her that like, you let him do this to us. And he says that he has a mission for the 13 and he's going to send them out. They all like go, and like the Duke comes and he brings Celaena, and basically they fly over like this encampment, and he makes Celaena use her shadow fire and like burn everybody to the point that like Celaena like passes out because Manon's like, that's enough, like she's exhausted, and he like kind of gets like pissy about it. But Celaena passes out, and he makes Manon like land and like finish off everybody in the village. And so we go to Aelin, and Aelin does end up selling like the assassins like the keep because she didn't care about keeping it. She just wanted the money. So they go back to the apartment, and he did hear her and Rowan have like that little like moment the night before where he was like, don't touch me or whatever. And he's like, I don't know. Aedian's like, obviously this is a fantasy world, like cousins marry and like things like that. So like, I don't know, like Aelin doesn't necessarily like, I don't think he loves her romantically. He more so looks at it as like his duty. Like I think he doesn't feel like that way for her one way or another. I think he does love her. I just don't think it's like romantic, but he would be with her because like he's always planned on doing that. And like, so like if her and like Rowan were to like break off, even though they like try to act like they're not a couple, everyone pretty much looks at them as one. So he kind of like is like giggling a little bit at that. And this is so I thought it was Rowan, but this is actually Aedian that tells her. I said this in the last episode that Aedian tells Aelin like that he really hates to see like her be like Celaena, because he recognizes that like that's really part of who she is, even though she acts like it's her like Celaena mask, and he hates that she had to grow up here. And she's like, I mean, you also grew up in like war camps, and he's like, yeah, but like I was supposed to protect you, and like I wish I would have been with you. And she's like, I mean, it would have just still been terrible for the both of us. And he feels like she grew up with like no joy or love. And she's like, I mean, it wasn't always bad. Like I wasn't just miserable every single day. But he also hates that like she comes up with plans like she's very Bryce. She comes up, yes, like she comes up with plans by herself, and it's almost like she doesn't trust anyone enough to include them in her plans. And he wants her to let them like share the burden of this with her. And she says, why would I risk your life? And so he says, what are we going to do now? And Aelin says, I'm going to free magic, take down the king, and kill Dorian. And she's like, well, those last two are interchangeable. I don't know which one is going to come first. And Aedian says like, okay, so like what, when, how? And she says, well, Rowan is working on the first part, and the rest you can ... My Vampire Diaries reference. And so they go home, and Rowan is like already in bed because he was like supposed to go find like Lorcan, and he couldn't find him, but he like did smell his scent, which is still pretty fresh. And Rowan wants to talk to her about last night, but he wants this girl, and he could not control himself. Like he's like looking at her. She's not like wearing like a super revealing like negligee, but she still has like on one of her fancy pajamas. But Aelin like gets in bed, turns her back, doesn't want to look at him. And he really like wants to talk to her because he wasn't mad that she touched him. He just like was not prepared for her to touch him like that. Like no one has touched him like that in however many years it's been since his wife died. So we go to Aelin, and her and Lysandra like get in disguise and go to this bakery to like they're looking for somebody. Clarice still has no idea like what really happened to Arabin. Like she truly believes that Arabin did not put her in the will. And so Aelin asks Lysandra like, is she going to be able to pay off her debt soon? And Lysandra says like no, because Clarice also is in debt, and she was like hoping for that money from Arobynn, because she basically like spent a whole bunch of money expecting to get that money from Arobynn, and now that she's not, like she's in debt, so like I'm probably screwed. So Aelin asked Lysandra like, well, how do you feel about like everything that happened? And Lysandra's like, I feel wonderful. Like the only thing I hate is that it happened like so fast, and like I didn't really get to like say my piece. Like she wanted to like give him a monologue before she killed him. And Aelin asked like, do you wish like I would have done it or whatever? Or no, Lysandra asked Aelin like, do you wish you would have done it? And Aelin says no. And Aelin kind of asked her like, basically they were talking about having like big boobs or whatever, because Lysandra has big boobs, and she's like, oh no, like it is like such a pain, like the first thing I'm gonna do when I can shift is like make these things smaller, basically. And she says like, if it wasn't for Evangeline, like Lysandra basically says like, well, as soon as she can shift, she would basically turn into an animal and live in the wilderness. And Aelin says like, well, you know, what about like wine and all the fine things in life? And Lysandra says like, you know, I don't really care about that, but she's like, I do care about something, and like I care about you as a person. And she's like, I really want you to understand that like I care about you, Aelin. And they go to like this bakery, and they're at the like register or whatever, and they're there to see a girl named Nellie. And this is Nezrin's dad's bakery. And they're basically looking for like someone who used to work in the shadow market. And Nellie's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And they just like keep putting money on the counter, like, you know, help us out. So basically what they learn is that there were some catacombs under the sewers, and like that's where they need to go like look for this person or whatever.
Catacombs, not scary at all.
Yeah, definitely not. There's too much underground stuff going on here. So Aelin tells Lysandra like that when she's able to shift, she should turn into a ghost leopard, because that will keep the men in check. Because like at some point Lysandra somebody mentions ghost leopards, and like all the guys are like, oh my god, like that's the scariest thing. And Lysandra was like, what's a ghost leopard? And they're like, I don't know, it's some vicious, ferocious leopard or whatever. So Aelin's like, yeah, you should definitely like, that should be your first thing. So they like leave, they go to the catacombs, and Rowan can tell that she's been down here before, because Aelin smells like the ash. It smells like Aelin has smelled before. And basically like the dealer that they were looking for, he not only sold opium, he also sold hellfire, which originally, I know you haven't seen Game of Thrones, but there's so many Game of Thrones references. So in Game of Thrones, if you know what I'm talking about, it was called wildfire, which was like that green stuff that like blew up the sept and like everything in Game of Thrones. Like that's all I can imagine. So they go down, and there's like a bunch of bodies in the sewer, and Rowan knows like basically Aelin wants this hellfire to blow up the tower. And the opium dealer, like, she's like, basically, we're not here for the opium dealer because he got caught 2 days ago. I'm here to find his supply, because obviously it didn't get caught, like, when the king, like, burned down the, whatever this is called, because it would have, like, blew up the whole place. It would have blew up the whole city. So they go down here, and it's not just like catacombs. It's like a temple of doom. Everyone's like, yeah, it feels like bad juju down there. Like there's like confessions written on the walls. There's bones all in the walls, and they date back like 900 years. And she wonders if like the sword of Gavin is like blessed, because like it's supposed to be like a truth teller kind of thing, and like she wonders if it will like help them find something down there. But Aedion actually ends up finding like what they're looking for, and then there's like an eye of Elena like sketched into something in the wall. I don't know. So they move something around, and like this wall like rearranges into word marks, and it tells them a story of like Elena and Gavin and how they were mates, and it talks about the war, and they learn some bad news, which is Elena never actually got rid of the Vogue. So the Vogue had actually been led by a king known as Erewhon, and he was a very beautiful man with gold eyes. And Gavin wrote in his confessional what actually happened, that Erewhon could not be destroyed. They used the Eye of Elena to put him to sleep, and they sealed him in an iron tomb below a black mountain. And Aelin's like, what does Morath mean in the old language? And Rowan says, Black Mountain. And so they basically figure out that they're sending all these people to Morath, and that is probably where Erewhon is, if he's not already released. And she's like, what's the coincidence? Probably none. And so Aelin's like, okay, summer solstice is in a couple of days. Like, if we can bring down the tower then, like, I'll have a good chance of having, like, my power at its strongest. Like, we need to, like, get this plan going. So we go to Manon. She's called to a meeting, like, with all the witches, or she's called a meeting for all the witches, and, like, nobody's really speaking to her at this point. They're, like, sick of this. And she's basically like, okay, I need suggestions on, like, which clan I can, like, give to Duke Harrington. And they're like, none of us. And she can basically tell, like, they must have called their own meeting, like, before they met with her, because they're all, like, saying the exact same thing. And Astron's like, why don't you just pick one yourself? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I don't even know. Like, why are you pretending like we have a choice? And so then they're, like, all in this room, and this really handsome man walks in, and she's like, what the hell? Like, because she put guards up. Like, how did he get past everyone? And then all of a sudden, they're all hit with this, like, darkness. And she can just see, like, that Kraken witch again that she had to kill. And she remembers Elite telling her that this is the man she saw. So she, like, snaps out of it, but it's, like, dark. So she's trying to feel around, and he's got one of her, like, 13 cornered, and they're screaming. And she's like, I've never heard. It's, like, one of the demon twins, and I can't remember what their names are, but she calls them the demon twins. She's like, I've never heard them scream like this. Like, they're never scared of anything. So she tackles him, and she's like, who sent you? Are you a spy? And Astron comes. They're, like, attacking him, like, make him bleed. And then, like, his eyes turn blue, and he says, my name is Roland. This is Dorian's cousin from the first book. And because I could not remember his name when we recorded whatever episode, the second book. He got sent with, because he was having headaches too, he got sent with Celaena down here with Duke Parrington. And he's like, please kill me. And so she does. And so some of the witches are drained, but what she realizes that only the witches who have regular eyes, like blue, brown, green, were affected. Any of the witches who have eyes flecked with gold, or like Manon, whose eyes are 100% gold, were like, they weren't able to like do anything to them. And she goes and finds Celaena, and she's like, where does your fire come from? And Celaena says that I always had it, but now it's melted with something different. And she says, can you take your collar off? And Celaena says the collar doesn't come off. And Manon says, well, what do you want? And Celaena says she says, what do they want? And Celaena says they want kings, not you. And then like Celaena like burns her with her fire. We go to Chaol, and he's just thinking how strange it is, like, working with Aelin. And he leaves the sewer with Nezran, and they end up, like, leaving the Hellfire, like, hidden down in the sewer. And they get a message from Ren, who basically says, like, the king is building an army in Morath, because, like, obviously we know that, but they don't know what's going on. And they're going to be sending the army this way, including, like, 3,000 witches with wyverns. And they... like, someone, Aelin or Adian asks Chaol, like, do you think your father would be an ally? And he's like, my dad doesn't have a ring. Like, he's not possessed, but he's, like, not a good man. So, like, I don't know. And Aelin, like, thanks Nezran for, like, all her help. And Nezran says, long live the queen. And Rowan, like, is still trying to get Aelin to talk to him. But, like, she's like, I cannot even, like, think straight. She's like, there's witches coming. And, like, I barely survived, like, killing Baba Yellowlegs. Like, I don't even know what to do about that. So she starts to walk off. She goes around the corner, and she gets snatched up by Lorcan. And he literally has a knife to her throat. And so she sees Rowan, like, and Rowan is terrified. Like, he's, like, for the first time ever, has, like, actual fear in his eyes. And basically, like, I already said this in the last episode, Lorcan's whole thing is he wants to get the word key because he wants to destroy the word keys, because he knows that because Aelin showed Maeve that the word keys are existing, that Maeve will want to take over the world, like Pinky in the Brain. And so he doesn't want Maeve to take over the world, so he's going to save Maeve by destroying the word keys himself. Okay, that's Lorcan's whole deal. So he tells Aelin that she's stupid, because he says, you really think that Maeve cared about Athriel, which was her, like, lover or whatever? Because that's how Aelin, like, got Rowan free or whatever. She was like, I'll give you this ring, which belonged to Athriel. Lorcan says, you're stupid. That ring, she didn't care about the ring because it was Athriel's. The ring is the only thing that protects a person from being enslaved by the Vogue. So he says, Maeve wants to make herself a god, and it'll destroy her. Lorcan has the ring. So he was not sent by Maeve. He came on his own. Like, but he, like, okay, so the way that the blood oath works, as long as the person believes that they're acting in Maeve's best interest, or whoever, Aelin, whatever, like, they can go off.
Do as they please.
Yeah, they can kind of do as they please. Like, Lorcan truly believes that he is acting in her best interest, so he's, like, good or whatever. And obviously, like, she hasn't called him home, like, so she doesn't really care either at this time. So, Lorcan does say, like, he doesn't believe the rest of, like, their cadre knows, like, what's going on. But he offers, like, her the ring in exchange for the word key, and saying he wants to destroy it. And he, like, lets her go, whatever. And as they're headed home, all she can think about is, like, the fear that she saw in Rowan's eyes. And, like, Rowan just, like, walks straight into the apartment and goes, like, into the bathroom and takes a bath. And so she's like, okay, I have to, like, talk to him. I have to tell him the truth. And she's like, please don't shut me out, like, when he comes out. And he feels like he failed her. He's like, you know, I broke your trust. I let him grab you. Like, you know, I was terrible. And he tells her, like, I would have gave him that work key just to save you. He says, I lied. Because when he showed up, he told her, like, no, I didn't miss you. Like, whatever. No, he missed her. He missed our girl. And I love this part. Actually, you know what? As a matter of fact, I saw a TikTok the other day because I was like, I just finished reading this the other night. And I was like, how perfect. I'm going to read exactly what it says if I can find it. First of all, this is so funny because I laughed. I cracked up so hard at this video because I talk about Cracker Barrel all the time. Have you ever seen Bringing Down the House with Queen Latifah?
Yes.
Okay.
So many times.
This TikTok says, songs I'd play if I owned a Cracker Barrel. I cried laughing so hard. I said, because I always say there's slaves cooking in the back. But I literally laughed so hard. Of course, I see that. I don't see like the other like video. Maybe I didn't actually like save it, but let me see if I can find it. Yeah, I laughed so hard at that. I was like, this is why we cannot get rid of this app. Like I need it. Here it is. Okay, so Aelin gives Rowan her neck, but she arched her neck farther, a silent invitation. Rowan grazed his teeth against her skin. One bite, one movement was all it would take for him to rip out her throat. And she says, no one else, I would never allow anyone else at my throat. Basically like to show like how much she trusts him. Mm-hmm. And he does like bite her, but like not in like a bad way or whatever. And he knows that she wants him, but he just says like not yet. Like he wants to take his time with her, and also like thin walls, Fae hearing, like Adian is out there. It's literally Ethan, Bryce, and Hunt. Like it's literally the same thing. And she said like, you know that this changes things, and he's like, things have already been changing. Like you're in denial. Meanwhile, like we get like such brief things from Dorian. Dorian is like in the prison, like punishing, like torturing someone. Like, yeah, he's miserable. So we go to Manon, and the wagon is going to be coming for a lead in 3 days. Manon tells her that like we'll be gone on a mission, so like you're gonna have to just like lay low. And she needs to go, like her mission is she has to go like to Adarlan or like near Adarlan because she's gonna meet her grandmother, and the king and Dorian will all be there. But the witches still are not speaking to her. So we go to Celaena for like the first time, and her scar aches more than anything because she has that scar on her arm. But she lets like Celaena is the sneaky girl. So Celaena is letting the demon think that it's in charge, but Celaena really is like, she's way more aware than Dorian is. She says her phantom fire had come, and as she like took pieces from the demon, and she was like hurting the demon. So at first the demon did have more possession of her, but then she slowly like took it over, and now she is in control now. And she does not remember her name though. She doesn't know that her name is Celaena. She just refers to herself as Death. We go to Aelin, and Evangeline shows up, and she's crying, and she says Lysandra was taken because Arabin, in his final act of betrayal, he sent a letter to the king saying that Lysandra was a shapeshifter. So somehow he knew that this whole time. And Aelin says like, okay, well, we need to go too, because they probably sent a letter saying like that we were staying here. And Chaol and Nezrin like show up because Ren also sent a message saying that they need to be having like, or they're going to be having a meeting with like the lords of Terrasen or whatever. But they are going to go and like save Lysandra. So, they leave Evangeline with Nezrin's dad, like out in the country, which is also where Fleetfoot is. And she just thinks like, you know, I am not going to bury another friend. And I can't remember if it's Chaol or Rowan, but like they're like, you know, you're not going to have to, like it's fine. And I think it's Rowan because she's like thinking how foolish it is like to start like having a relationship with him. Like this is dumb, but you know. YOLO. And so, you know, it is Rowan, because then Rowan literally, like, they're laying in bed, and Rowan literally has to get up and, like, throw a cold pitcher of water over himself, because, like, he cannot. He wants this girl. So they are going to the forest, because that's where everyone's going to be meeting. So this is really the first time, like, everyone's in the vicinity of each other. And that's where the king is going to be meeting with the witches, and that's where Lysandra's going to be. So Aelin, like, and the gang's all there, and they see the wyverns, and they're like, great, grand. And first of all, they see the wyverns, bad, evil wyverns, and then they see Abraxos. Abraxos
sweet little summer child.
Yeah, just like you know, just laying in the flowers, bathing in the sun, you know, whatever. So Rowan points out Manon, even though they don't know who Manon is, but he points out Manon and is like, I think that one is the wing leader. And Aelin already pretty much assumes they're going to take Lysandra to Morath. And so she assures Chaol, like, I'm not going to touch Dorian. But she sees Dorian and he looks less human than he did. So we switch over to Manon, and the king is there, and he has a prisoner in his wagon. And like this pisses her off. Her grandmother comes up and bows to this man, and she's like, "We don't bow to humans. Like, what is going on?" She's like disgusted. And then her grandmother introduces Manon. Manon's like, "Yeah, what's up?" Like, and her grandmother's like, "Oh my god, like act like you have some grace or something." And she's like, "Whatever." But the king's actually like, "You know what? I like you. Like, you're good or whatever." Like, he's not pissed off about it, but her grandmother is. And the king asks, like, you know, "Are you ready to show me what you prepared for me?" Talking to her grandmother. And the grandmother's like, "Yeah." And Manon goes to follow them, and she's like, "No, you stay here." And so she's like, "What the heck? Like, I don't even get to see what it is." So then she meets Dorian, and she says, "Hello, Princeling." And we go to Chaol, who very briefly is like, "Oh, Dorian is not Dorian." Oh my god, Captain Obvious. Thank you. Then we go to Dorian. So Dorian sees Manon. The demon does not like Manon getting close because she has the eyes of the Vogue King. Remember, witches are part Vogue. The Vogue King has gold eyes. Manon has gold eyes. So like they're like, I don't know. So she says, "Hello, Princeling." He says, "Hello, Witchling." He's smiling. Is this Dorian flirting or is this a demon? We don't really know. She says, "Why are you smiling at me?" And he says, "Do I need a reason to smile at a beautiful woman?" Manon says, "I'm not a woman." She says, "And what are you?" And he doesn't answer that, but he goes, "I've never been with a witch." And like he thinks like Manon is like so beautiful. Manon says, she's like, "I don't think so." But she goes, "Will you bleed red or black?" And Dorian says, "I'll bleed whatever color you tell me to." And she asks him for his name, and he can't remember. And she grabs him by his collar. I love the fan art of this. And he says, "Dorian." And the demon says, "Your name is mine," to Dorian. And Manon says, "Do you want me to kill you, Dorian?" And he says, "I want you to do plenty of things to me." And Manon says, "Come find me again, Prince." These two. We're gonna put a pin in them. Okay. Anyways, so Chaol, he like does his little bird call or whatever to distract the witches so that Aelin can get Lysandra. So she like breaks into the wagon, and luckily Lysandra does not have like a ring or a collar on, so they grab her, they get her out. This goes perfectly, right? Great, cool, whatever. They get her out, they kill some soldiers, and they put them in the wagon, so like everything's good. The king and Dorian, like they leave, they go on about their way, everything's yada yada. Manon's grandmother comes out, slaps Manon for like misbehaving, and like makes her look, she said, you're an ignorant fool. And she's like, "I've been getting your letters, like you need to like obey." Like, so her grandmother is like a piece of trash, whatever. And she like slashes her face, and she's like, "You need to do whatever the Duke says." And so she's like, "You want to see what's in there? Fine." And she shows her, and she's like, "Let me know if it meets your standards." And what her grandmother has been making are like these witch mirrors, which I'll explain in a minute. Dorian, really quickly, the demon is like shoving him back, but he does remember Manon. Chaol. I hate him. I hate him so much because he can't just let him go. So he decides, you know what? He goes, he follows the king, and he literally says, "Aelin and the others can deal with whatever the aftermath is because I'm going to be dead." Oh, okay. Just damn us, huh? Okay. Just sacrifice yourself, and then we all might die too. They had a perfectly executed plan.
Yep.
They got her out. Nobody knows anything different. Let's go. No. He has to go after the king and Dorian with no plan because he doesn't even get to them. He runs into the witches. So, go to Aelin. Here comes Nezrin. Please save him. Oh my god. I hate him so much. Okay. So they find Chaol. One of the witches, I'm pretty sure it's Manon, is like holding him and like digging her nails in his neck. And they all know that she took Lysandra. So Aelin's like, "Look, take me or whatever." And she's like, "I'm Aelin Galathynius, witch killer, whatever." She doesn't say that actually. She doesn't tell them she kills a witch. But what happens is the wind blows. And apparently when you kill a witch, you can smell it.
Like a stink bug.
So what Aelin, the whole time they're having this interaction though, she's like doing something in the ground because she's like spelling the ground with the word mark. So Aelin says run and they like throw Kaol and because they were going to exchange, but then they like run after them and like the word mark hits them. So now they're really pissed. Like they're more pissed that she put a spell on them. So they run to a ravine and like the witches are chasing after them. So they're like, this is all like hard to follow, but they run to like this bridge. It's like, there's like an island and, they cross this bridge and like Manon is like hot on their trail. So then they start getting like shot with arrows and all of a sudden like Aelin's about to get shot and Rowan blocks it and like he goes down. So she keeps telling everyone to run and then like Manon is like on top of her like swinging her sword and Manon's like I have to kill her, like the law demands it, like not even for like Bobby Yellow Legs or any of that, like because you put a spell on me. So Adian's trying to help, but Aelin's like staying down. So they start like going like straight up hand-to-hand combat. Like they're just fighting. So they end up in like this temple thing. And I don't know how Aelin does this because like it's a lot happening really fast. But Manon just like is fighting so furiously that she like doesn't even care that she ends up like collapsing this entire temple and this entire island. So this like temple collapses around Manon and Aelin gets out. But she sees that this like island is about to like collapse into like nothing. And Astrid, she doesn't know who this is, but it's Astrid, starts like crying out like for Manon, like calling her name, screaming. So Aelin decides to go back and save her, and she grabs her and she says, if I die because of you, I'll beat the shit out of you in hell. And Manon says, you should have let me die. And Aelin says, I know. So she grabs her, they run, and they leap from the bridge as like this temple collapses. And as they get across, like Aelin goes straight to Rowan and he like grabs her and calls her his Fireheart. And like the 13 come from Manon, and like Manon ends up passing out, and when she wakes up, like, they're gone, and, like, the 13 come for her, and she knows, like, now I owe, like, my enemy a life debt. So, like, they were fighting, but then Aelin ends up saving her, and now she, like, owes her one. So, Aelin, like, they get away, and Rowan is, like, half dead, and they need a healer. So, Kaol says that they should go to Nesrin's father's house, because there's kind of, like, a healer there, and Aelin's like, we'll go there, but I'm just gonna tell you right now, like, don't start any, like, I don't want to hear your mouth, because if they betray us, I will kill them. Like, you just need to know that. So they get there and she sees Fleetfoot again and like she does not leave Rowan's side. And like the lady that like kills him is like, you need to take a bath before like I kick you out of my house, basically. And so she like does that. And Kaol comes out to Aelin and is basically like, you know, I'm sorry. Like I just needed to see for myself that like Dorian was like not Dorian. Shut up. Just shut up, please. So she asks Kaol like, you know, would you have been able to kill Dorian? And he says yes, which I do not believe. I don't believe it. Dorian would have killed him. First of all, Dorian has magic and you don't. Dorian would have killed you in 2 seconds. He has magic and a demon. What are you going to do? Nothing. So she tells Kaol, like, we'll take care of this together. And then the next morning, like, Rowan's mostly healed, so they head back to the city. So go to Manon. She catches up to the king and, like, lets him know, like, hey, like, there's rebels in the woods. And he's like, so? Like, I don't care. And she tells the king, like, you should send Dorian to Morath. And she wants to tell him, like, about, like, exactly which rebels and all this stuff, but she doesn't because he obviously doesn't care. But what she saw that her grandmother made were these mirrors. And what these mirrors can do is that they can amplify powers that literally can exterminate, like, an entire army using a power like Kaltain's Shadowfire. Like, it is, like, I don't know. It's giving me, like, Lord of the Rings. Like, it's giving me, like, Sauron's army. Like, I don't know. It's insane. So we go to Alid, and she has been waiting for this supply wagon, and it's late. So she goes to Manon's room, and the wagon's finally coming. She goes to get her stuff, and Vernon is waiting for her. And he says, where are you going? And he says, so are you a human or are you a witch? And he, like, slices her, but, like, her blood is obviously red. And she says, I'm a Blackbeak. And he, like, slams her into the wall. He's like, you're coming with me. And she wants to try to fight back, and he tells her, like, you have witch blood, and we're going to see, like, basically if you're any useful at all, and he's basically planning to breed her, like the witches, with the Vogue demons, and he takes her to the dungeon. And so Manon, like, gets back to Morath, and she gets summoned by the Duke, and he shows her, like, all these, like, status updates on the armies, because she's basically, like, the whole time she's been there, she wanted to know all this stuff, and so now he's, like, telling her. And she asked him, like, okay, like, enough about that. Did you send a spy into my chambers? And he, like, doesn't really say anything. And he, like, wants her to read, like, the report. And it's all about Aelin and her fire magic. And it's about Adian, it's about Kaol, it's about Rowan. And she realizes, like, that's who have been in the forest trying to free the prince. Or kill him because they don't realize that, like, he's still Dorian on the inside. And the Duke asked her, like, did you pick a coven yet? And she's like, no, like, I haven't. He's like, well, you have till tomorrow. And so she goes back and she, like, finds Astrid waiting for her. And she says, like, we need to have or Astrid tells Manon, like, we need to talk. So they fly out. And Astrid tells her, like, something that she hasn't told her in, like, I don't know, it's been, like, 80 years. Astrid says that when she was 28, she got caught in a really bad storm. They used to have brooms. So she was on her broom and she got caught in a storm. And she, like, crashed and, like, had a whole bunch of, like, injuries. And a human man found her and healed her. And it, like, she was with him for so long that, like, she lost her appetite to, like, eat him. And she ended up staying with him for 5 months. And she basically fell in love with him. And Manon has never heard this story. And when she finally had to go home, she was 1 month pregnant. So she goes back and she tells Manon's grandmother that she's pregnant, and, like, you know, they really love babies there. So, like, her grandmother, like, is really happy. But when she goes to have the baby, it's a stillborn. And she was planning on actually, like, running off with the baby and, like, raising it with the, like, human man, because she just, you know, all these things. But the baby's a stillborn. And so when she has the baby, Manon's grandmother beats the crap out of her, doesn't even let her see the baby, throws the baby in a fire, and then brands her on her stomach with the words unclean, and tells her that she disgraced the clan, because apparently she knew this whole time. And only Sorrel and Vesta, which was another of the 13, knew this, because they had, like, nursed her back to health after all this happened. And the only reason Manon didn't know is because Manon was, like, off on a mission when all this happened. And when Manon came back, it was the same night that Astrid ended up coming back as well. Like, she ended up, I think she ended up, like, killing somebody, doing something to, like, regain, like, the confidence or whatever. And she came back at the same time. She said she never went back to find the hunter, but she would fly over his cabin, and she basically watched him, like, grow old, and he would sit on the porch like he was waiting for her. And she said, you know, I became strong enough to become your second because I knew you were better than your grandmother. She said, I'm begging you, do not let your grandmother do this. Do not let these men take our witchlings. And she says Manon knows, like, she can't, but she says she knows that they'll be killed for, like, whatever they're about to do. So we go to Rowan, and solstice is in 6 days, and Aelin's, like, finalizing their plans. Aelin is, like, still, like, she still has, like, the witch blood on her, from the fight with Manon, and he wishes, like, he could have been able, like, to kill them, and, like, he wished he had his magic. And he asks her, like, why did you save that witch? And she says, because that other witch screamed her name the same way I screamed yours. Then we go to Aelin, and Lysandra just, like, cannot believe that, like, they saved her. And Aelin gives Lysandra a paper. She paid the debt for both Lysandra and Evangeline to Clarice. So they are both, like, free. So Manon goes, and this is where it starts getting, like, real flippy floppy with people. So Manon goes back to Rithold, because, like, she tells Astrid, like, okay, I have one more thing that I need to do. So she goes back to Adarlan, to Rithold, and she leaves a message, and I'll come back to that. And Alita's just, like, in the dungeon, and she's like, is anyone, like, ever gonna come save me? Like, she's like, oh my god, like, no one's gonna come save me. And we go to Rowan. He can smell Lorcan on the roof, and Lorcan wants to know, like, did they consider his offer to, like, do the trade? And he knows Aelin's, like, planning something. And Lorcan says, you know, I was going to offer to bury you on the mountain next to your beloved, but I'll just leave your body here. And he tells Rowan, like, you know how good of a hunter I am. Like, I could easily destroy those keys. And Rowan says, like, swear to me that ring is a protection. I will give you the key. I'll give you the amulet. And Lorcan, like, does, like, a blood oath. Like, he swears it. And he tells him, like, you guys are stupid. Like, you're all going to die. And Rowan gives it to him, and, like, Lorcan leaves. And then he goes inside and gives Aelin the ring, and she puts it on, and she's like, nothing happened. But she puts it on, and she goes, how mad is he going to be when he realizes that that's a fake? Because they gave him the fake ring that, like, the demon was wearing when they took him to, like, Erebin that one time. And meanwhile, Dorian is, like, still thinking about Manon, even though the demon, like, does not want him to think about her. And we go back to Aelin. So she asks Chaol, like, do you regret sacrificing your freedom to send me away? And he says no. He just wishes that he had never even served the king, and he apologizes to her just, like, for everything. And, like, her and, like, Chaol have, like, a genuine talk, and he apologizes for, like, his recent behavior. He apologizes for failing to protect Nehemia. And Aelin apologizes as well, and, like, admits that, like, her friendship to him, like with him, really did mean a lot to her, and they kind of like come to terms with the fact that like neither one of them have romantic like feelings for each other anymore, and they both want each other to have happiness. And she apologizes for like leading him on, and he just tells her like, you know, you deserve to be happy. And that night in bed, like her and Rowan like don't hook up, but they are like closer. And Kael goes to like a temple with Nezran, and he basically like says like, you know, maybe we can actually like try a relationship. And Nezran agrees, and she makes Kael promise like that he'll survive storming the castle, so like they actually can try this out. So it's time to like set all these plans in motion. So hold tight. All right. So Lysandra and Evangeline get their tattoos removed, and they are sent to like leave town. Like Aelin does not want them a part of this. So they get their tattoos removed, and they're going to go to an apartment outside of town. And there's a message in the town in Vogblood, and it's from Manon. And that's what she did when she came. She wrote, "Witch killer, the human is still inside of him." So Aelin knows, like, there's still a chance that they can save Dorian. So Rowan and Aedion follow the scent of the Wordhounds through the sewer. So they are going to go to the clock tower and, like, blow it up for Aelin. And so Aelin and Kael are going to do a step. They're all splitting up. Aelin and Kael are going to go to the castle, and she's going to don her Celaena mask one more time. So she goes to the castle pretending to be the king's champion, like she's just got back from her trip. Because technically, like, it would be early for her to come back, but like she's back from her trip. So she comes back, and she gives like the king like these replica rings from like the Prince of Windland, which is like what her original job was. But like he does not fall for this. He immediately knows like she didn't do that, and he already knows that she's Aelin. Like this does not work. Meanwhile, Rowan and Aedion make it to the tower, and they are like having severe nosebleeds. It smells terrible. They're having headaches. And Lorcan screwed them over because he did not kill the Wordhounds. He gave them a piece of Rowan's cloak, and so now they have his scent. And literally, like, they're in the tower. A piece of Rowan's cloak drops down, and he's like, "Oh crap!" And they immediately are attacked by these Wordhounds. So, back with the king. So he tells Aelin and Kael that he got into Dorian's mind, so he's known this whole time who she really was. And she just goes like, okay, so like the ruse is up, whatever. She's like, "Where are the word keys?" And he says, "What if I don't tell you?" So she's really trying to buy time because she's hoping that this tower is down by noon. Like that is the plan. So the king starts like whipping and beating on Dorian. And Aelin's like, "This is your son. Like, why are you doing this?" Like, and it's just like trying to throw her off. And he's like, "Nah, I don't care. I have another son. Like, whatever." So noon comes and the tower is not down. So yeah, no, not good. Things are not going well for Rowan and Aedion. So Aelin distracts the king and shows him a replica of the Eye of Elena. And he's like, you know, where'd you find that? I've been looking for that. But she just like distracts him, and then she starts running from the throne room. But he knows, like, since she has that she probably has, a key as well. So instead of the king chasing her, Dorian starts following after Aelin, and the king stays behind with Kael. And Kael's basically, I don't know, you know, I mean, you gotta give it to him. He's got heart. He's gonna square off with the king. I don't know what his thought process was. And Dorian follows Aelin, and he says, "I told you that you would regret sparing me." So Aelin's like running from him, and she literally like jumps out a window because Dorian starts shooting like ice magic at her, and she lands on like the glass bridge. Because if you remember, the castle is like two parts. There's a glass part of the castle, and then there's like a regular stone part. She lands on like the glass bridge. So Kael's whole plan is like he's going to try to spare Aelin by fighting with the king and sacrifice himself. And so the king literally just starts throwing like all of his magic at Kael. Like Kael literally did not stand a chance. Like poor guy. So Aelin is like talking to like Dorian, like trying to get him to remember. He does not remember her. But he like on the inside, he can sense how much like this demon wants to kill her. And Dorian ends up like getting close to Aelin, and she's still like Dorian, like please remember like Sorsha, like all these things, and he ends up stabbing her in the side like with ice, and the tower still is not down. And she's like trying to remind him like who he is. And then she says like Chaol sacrificed himself. Like the king probably killed him. She says he's going to put and then Dorian says like, I'm going to put a collar around your neck. And she says, remember Sorsha? She's literally like crying. And he's like, I don't care. And then back with Rowan and Aedion, Lorcan shows up in the nick of time, thankfully. And he's here to save the day. And even though like Rowan has injuries like from fighting off the word hounds, he feels Aelin get stabbed by Dorian, and he's like, oh my gosh, no, like we're running out of time, like she's hurt. So Lorcan, Aedion, and Rowan are able to take out the rest of the word hounds. Though they light the fuse and they get out of there and they blow up the tower, and literally everyone can feel magic like be restored throughout the country, which is called Aurelia, by the way. I don't know if I've ever said that. So they're leaving the tower, and unfortunately now there's like 100 soldiers, Vogue soldiers, like waiting for them. Over with Manon, she's like on her way back to Morath. Like she feels like a shudder go through the world, like as magic returns. Kaltain can feel it. And Aelin's still trying to like talk to Dorian to like get him to remember as like the shudder goes through them as well. And so as she's talking to him, she slips the ring onto his finger, and the Vogue like cannot like resist it, like it's trying to get it off, and it literally starts like lashing out, but she has her firepower now and she can fight back. So inside of Dorian can like see light now, and we go over to Aedion and Rowan. They're fighting the Vogue. They're losing terribly, and Aedion's like, okay, we're gonna die. He tells Rowan like it's been an honor, but out of nowhere Lysandra did not go to the apartment. She dropped off Evangeline. She pops up out of nowhere as a ghost leopard and starts like killing all of these soldiers everywhere. And she kills them all, and they're able to get out of the sewer, and all they see is like Aelin's like fire. And so Rowan's like, good, like she's still fighting. And I was like, yes, like I love Aelin. And they also see like arrows like flying, but it's Nezrin, and she's like taking out people. And then Lysandra like joins, and she's like taking out different soldiers. So Aelin is fighting Dorian, but she's like starting to overheat. But then the king comes out, and he starts joining Dorian. And he comes out and he says like, I killed Chaol. But that, instead of like helping Dorian, that's the thing that brings Dorian back. And he says, what did you say? And he just like takes control of himself, and he like reaches up and snaps off his collar, and he builds like this like wall of ice between him and Aelin, and then like his father. So Rowan turns into like hawk form so that he can fly over to Aelin and like get there quicker. And Aelin and Dorian start like putting their like magic together, and they're just like pummeling the king with like fire and ice. And finally, like they get the king down, and his humanity breaks through. And I think like this is such an interesting moment, and so many people like talk about this. So the king goes like, my boy, which Harry Potter, but he says my boy, and he turns to Aelin and he says, are you finally here to save me? So the king's ring breaks, and he's finally free of like Vogue control, but it's almost like he's just like wasting away. Like he's just gonna like die anyways. And he tells Aelin and Dorian that when he was young, he found a word key, and him and Duke Parrington accidentally released Erewhon. Duke Parrington is actually the big dog. Like the king is not. So Duke Parrington has actually been possessed by Erewhon this entire time, and a different Vogue prince is like inside the king of Adarlan. And the king says, you could have sailed him back up with the eye. And he says, now all the players back, like the Galathynius, like everyone's back. And the king claims that everything that he's done was to keep Dorian safe from Erewhon. He had the towers built to banish magic and prevent the Vogue from noticing the strength of Dorian's power, which would mark him like to be like a good host. And Dorian's like, I don't believe you, like you're a liar. And he calls Dorian like his boy, and Aelin says like, you don't get to call him that. And she's like, you came to my home to kill me. And he says, I came so that you could hopefully like save me with your like fire magic. And the king says Chaol is actually still alive. He says like there was a light around him that saved him, and it's because he had the real Eye of Elena on him, because Aelin had slipped it into his pocket. And Dorian says that you're a liar and you deserve this. And I don't know exactly where it is in this point, but I'm pretty sure it's in this book. I don't know. I listened to the audiobook. Again, I know things get blurry, and if it's not, I'm so sorry if I spoil this. But we call the king just the king, like this entire series. Is it in this? Do you remember hearing it?
I honestly don't know.
Okay, I'm so sorry. I'm like afraid to say it because I don't remember if it's in this book and if I'm like spoiling. Because I never. Okay, nope, I'm not telling you. Okay, so I'm not gonna spoil it, but we just never learn what the king of Adarlan's name is. By the way, I just want to like put a pin in that. We'll come back. We're so close to like talking about everything. Okay, I'm glad I didn't tell you though. Okay, moving on. Okay, where was I at? Okay, so then like Dorian literally like explodes all his magic. He shatters the glass castle and he kills his father. And Aelin uses her fire magic to like protect the city from like all the glass, and then like her, Chaol, and like Dorian fall, and Rowan uses like his wind to save them as they come down. And like Dorian and Chaol are like both unconscious. So Aelin like gets up and she goes and like addresses the city, and she tells them that the king is dead, that Dorian he survived and he is king, but until he is ready to like assume his position, she announces herself. She says, I am Aelin Ashryver Galathynius, and that I will rule until Dorian's ready to lead. She tells them if they loot or do anything like mischievous, she will burn them all to ash. If they riot against their king, she will kill them. She said there's like that wall up. She said if you do anything, I will remove this wall and I will melt this city. And she orders that every enslaved person is freed. And she says if not, like she will kill them. Like if they are whipping people or doing it, she will kill them. And she lets them know, like she says that she killed the king. She does not put that on Dorian. So we go back to Morath, and Vernon, like Elite's still in the dungeon. So Vernon goes down, and this is such a good part too. This book is so good. Vernon goes and visits Elite in the dungeon because magic is free, and he's like, okay, let me see if you got magic. And she doesn't. And he's like, okay, well, I still plan on like breeding you. And he calls in a man named Cormac, which is so interesting because Sarah does not, I gotta look that up. She literally says that she does not repeat names.
Oh.
She says that all the time.
Yeah.
And Cormac, spoiler for Crescent City, Cormac does die. But does he? Does he? Okay, I'm going to have to look at some theories. I'll let you know. I know you won't look because you'll see things.
Yeah.
And he's like, it's basically just like a few stitches. Like, he's not going to have her, like, be assaulted. But, like, they implant the stone and whatever. But then Manon comes back, and she is like, okay, crap. Elid's been here by herself. Like, something's probably happened to her. So she goes to see the cook, and she's like, where is Elid? And he's like, who? And she's like, the girl. Like, you know who she is. And he's like, I don't know. I haven't seen her. So she's like, runs around, and like, somebody's like, hey, like, she's in the dungeon. And meanwhile, Elid's being like bathed and like put in this like robe to like be assaulted. So Manon literally starts killing everybody. Like, she's going through all these dungeons, her and like the 13, they're killing everybody. And as she's like doing that, like news arrives of like the king being dead, and like everything just starts going crazy in Morath. So she does finally find Elid, and she's like literally being like heckled, like her robe's like torn open, and she gets her and like she like takes her, and she realizes like why she's felt off ever since she had to kill that Kraken witch, because she has just felt so much regret and shame from that moment. So she grabs Elid and she's getting ready to go, and she runs into Kaltain. And Kaltain comes to her and she says, let me help you escape. And she slices open her arm, that nasty wound, and she pulls out a word key. It's been in her arm the whole time. She tells Elid to deliver this to Celaena Sardothien. She says, tell her it can open any door, and tell her to remember her promise to me to punish them all because they would not bring the cloak that she gave me, but I kept a piece. And then Kaltain disguises herself as Elid because, like, I think it was Vernon who said, like, oh, you guys could be, like, cousins or sisters, because they both are, like, really pale, dark hair. So they switch, like, robes or whatever, and Elid's like, I'm naked, and Kaltain doesn't care. So they switch or whatever, and, like, Kaltain's poor, but, like, she's, like, so broken, so abused. And Elid says, like, we could save you, and Kaltain says, I have no interest in living. Like, I don't think I can even live without, like, the demon's power. Like, I don't care. So they switch it or whatever, and Kaltain is like taken off to the breeding catacombs, and she literally goes in there and she's like chained to the table. Like, no one even pays any attention to her. and she just unleashes her shadow fire. She kills all of the Vogue, the witches that are down there, the demon offspring, and Manon, Elide, and the 13 escape, but like just barely. I'm gonna put a pin in this because I've been waiting to tell you this theory for so long. Okay, here's the theory. The theory is that Celaena is the cereal.
Oh, and hence why the cereal
likes cloaks. Yes. I wanted to see if I can find one. Yes, I have been waiting to tell you that for so long. Celaena's story is so sad. Like, I know we hate her in the first book. Yeah, it is. And, okay. So, the cereal's last words, which parallels Aelin's promise, leave this world a better place than how you found it. And there's, like, another reason, like, later on in the series. Trying to see what else. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. I'm trying to think, is there anything more to that? But, you know, it's so sad. But, like, yeah, that's the theory. That she's a cereal.
I mean, I like it.
And the cloak, yeah. Because they wouldn't let me keep her cloak. And that's so sad. Like, that makes me want to cry. Like, I cry at the weirdest things. Like, I won't cry about the saddest book in the world. But, like, Celaena's story is, like, so heartbreaking. Like, this girl literally just wanted to be a queen. Like, she literally, I mean, she was not nice. She was a mean girl. But, like, she literally, like, just went and, like, wanted to be with Dorian. And, like, okay, like, she played the game. She did want to kill Aelin. But, like, she literally, like, was getting drugged and then literally got abused so terribly. And to the point that she didn't know her name or anything and wanted to die. And she took them out. Like, yeah. It's so sad. Okay, a couple more chapters. So, we go back to Aelin. She literally sleeps for like 3 days. And they stay in the castle, and Rowan just like stays outside of her room, and she stays in her old room from when she first came in Throne of Glass. Lorcan comes, and Lysandra literally vomits Vogue blood.
I loved that.
All over him. Multiple times. He just stands there, and she just goes, bleh. And Rowan says, yeah, you deserve that. And he doesn't care. And Lorcan tells him that he basically returned to hell with the Wordhounds because he figured out that Aedion was Gabriel's son. So that's the only reason he came back. And he's like, basically, like, Gabriel's like a brother to me. Like, I would never do that. Like, what do you mean? Like, blah, 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 blah. Whatever. Like, he doesn't like Rowan because Rowan deflected, essentially. But, like, he likes Gabriel because they're still part of the same team. So Aelin, basically had healed herself during the fight, but she actually did it too fast. So she had, like, glass and stuff in her skin. So Rowan had to, like, pick them out and, like, re-heal her. And he's, like, thinking about Dorian. Like, Dorian is so powerful. He needs to learn how to, like, harness his magic. But Aelin wakes up and she's like, I saved the world and you're pissy. Like, what's going on? Like, what's going on? He's like, it was a group effort. Chill out. And she's like, okay, I need you to help me to the bathroom before I pee myself. I love that they go to the bathroom in these books. And so he tells her, Rowan says, all the centuries I've traveled the world, but I think I was looking for you. And they finally kiss, like, yay, we're a couple. And Aedion, like, is starting to come in, and he's like, whoop, let me, like, back up. And Lysandra's also, like, in the hallway. I think, like, she, like, ran in, like, to them at the same time. And then, like, Lorcan ends up leaving, but he steals back Dorian's ring, like, the immunity ring, but, like, before he leaves. So Aelin goes to see Dorian, and he just, like, he doesn't have a collar, so he just has that, like, this pale mark on his neck now. And all he can think when he wakes up, he sees her is, like, she really, like, looks like a queen. Like, she's so different from the girl he first met. And she tells him, like, you're king now. And he's like, I don't know if I deserve to be king. And he feels guilty for, like, what's happened to everyone. And then he goes to see Chaol. Chaol wakes up, and what happened to Chaol is that he's paralyzed. So the king broke his spine, and he's paralyzed from the waist down. And there's no, like, healers left in Aurelia because the king took them all out. So Dorian wants Chaol and Nesryn to go to the southern continent because that's where Nesryn's family's from, and he wants them to go to the Torre Chesme, which we learned about in Assassin's Blade. And Dorian makes Nesryn the captain of the guard and makes Chaol the king's hand, which Game of Thrones. Anyways, so back with Manon. Manon and the 13, like, they leave Morath, and they drop Elite off, like, in the middle of this forest. They're like, we can't take you anywhere else, but, like, at least you're free now, so. And Elite's like, what? Like, I can't even read. And, like, Elite's, like, crying about Celaena, and Manon's like, don't cry. Like, she did it. Like, she wanted to free herself. Like, that was the best, like, outcome for her. And so Manon and the 13 go back to Morath, and they tell Vernon, like, Elite died, like, in the breeding chamber, like, with the whole, like, bomb or whatever. And Manon, before she leaves Elite, like, she does tell Elite that, like, the king is dead, because Aelin Galathynius killed him. And she also tells her that Aedion and Ren are, like, alive. And, like, obviously Elite knows who those people are. And then Manon also finally takes the chain off of Elite's ankle before she, like, frees her and tells her to go north to Terrasen. So Aelin offers Lysandra property so that she could officially have property in Terrasen and be a lady. And Lysandra's like, are you proposing to me? Because she offers her, like, a ring. And Lysandra's like, I don't know anything about being a lady. And she's like, she was like, there's no one I would want more to have my back than, like, you. And so Lysandra accepts. And Dorian signs, like, a decree that frees all of the kingdoms that were conquered by Adarlan. And all, like, Aelin can think is, like, how 10 years later, Aedion, Dorian, and Aelin are, like, all sitting at a table. Like, in 10 years ago, they were all, like, kids at a table that night when the king came. And then, unfortunately, Duke Parrington and Vernon both survived, like, the bombing. And now Duke Parrington's men are, like, looking for the word key because, obviously, Celaena is missing. And so he has, like, the Iron Teeth, like, preparing for battle. And Manon's grandmother is going to be coming in 2 weeks. And Manon tells Vernon, like, I'm not going to forget, like, what you tried to do to Elide. So you, like, need to watch out. And she, like, stabs him with, like, her nails. And Manon's basically, like, they're going to stay and, like, wait and see, like, what her grandmother's plans are. So Aelin and her court are going to leave for Terrasen. So they say goodbye to Dorian, Chaol, and Nezran. And Aelin tells Chaol that he needs to try to, like, make an alliance in the southern continent on Terrasen's behalf, because they're preparing to go to war with Duke Parrington. And she makes Chaol an ambassador of Terrasen. And he goes to, like, give her the Eye of Elena. And Dorian is like, why did that finally work? Like, he's been carrying that around for months. And she tells him, like, courage of the heart, like, will make it work. And Chaol, like, asks to see her fire. And I'm like, no, you can't see my fire. Like, you don't even like it. No, now you want to see my fire. No. But whatever. And so Manon comes back to Rifthold and, like, just visits to, like, see Dorian. She can, like, see him from, like, afar and, like, sees that he doesn't have his collar on. And then, like, after, like, 3 weeks of traveling, Aelin, Rowan, Aedion, Lysandra, and Evangeline finally make it to Terrasen. And Aelin realizes that Rowan's smell, he smells of, like, like, forest and, like, ice or whatever, I don't know. That's what Terrasen smells like. And it just smells like home. The end.
It's so good.
Yes.
A lot happened.
It is a lot. So what did you think? What did you rate it?
I rated it 4 stars.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah.
No.
I did, like, there was probably 90 to 95% of the book. I was just hoping Chaol would die, but
I truly cannot stand him. Like, I truly cannot. Like, I just don't. I think I rated it 4 stars also. Obviously, that's because it's not my favorite in the series, but I love this book. Like, we're finally getting, like, Celaena is, like, oh, that hurts my soul so bad. Like, but we get, like, Rowan and Aelin, we get Dorian and Manon. The king
really
is dead.
like Lysandra now.
Like, listen, yes. That's why I was like, so what do you, like, I guess I can finally ask predictions. Okay. Predictions. What do you think? I mean, okay, so what's happening? So, obviously the next 2 books, they're splitting. So we have, I can't remember what the next one's called. Tower of Dawn is Chaol and Nezran, and I'm dreading that book. Whatever the next one is, we'll read first, which is Aelin and them. So, like, what do you think? Where are we going? What's going to happen? We have 3 more books left in this series.
Gosh, 3?
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
I know.
I'm like, how is there even that
I know.
much stuff
And they're
that
long
can
books. Like,
happen?
it's not even, like, we have a lot left.
Oh, God.
But
I don't know.
I mean, I kind of gave it away. So, obviously, I'm kind of hinting at there's a I don't even know if they call them. There's a Dorian and Manon. There's a something there. What do you think's gonna happen with like Manon and her grandma?
I hope she kills her grandma.
She sucks.
She's awful.
What about a lead? She's literally just
Poor
out there in the world, like helpless.
Poor girl with her
broken, messed up ankle, can't read. Like, okay, there you go.
Nobody with her.
Yeah, like here you go.
And then she has a word key. Like that doesn't add any danger.
Yeah, like everyone's gonna be hunting me down, and I cannot do anything.
I don't know.
I will say, so I did say this. Lorcan is a favorite.
Really?
I don't know. I'm not gonna tell you how he gets there. Not necessarily of mine. Like I don't really have any feelings for him.
But he has a character arc.
Yeah. I guess Kale has a character. I don't like Kale. Even at the end, like I could do without ever reading about him again.
Up until this book, I was just kind of like, all right, like indifferent, but no, I'm team. He can get pushed off a cliff.
What do you think about the king? Like, do you think he was all bad or all good? Do you think he was like? What do you think? Or something like? Do you think he went like with the word keys? Like his intent was bad, or like, and he just like got caught up, or like maybe he was like good originally, and then like the demons took over, or
I don't know. That's a difficult dilemma because how would you know? Either way, like, I mean, I don't know.
I guess my thing is like he said that about the towers, but like you guys were still rounding people up with the towers, so it's like,
right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, you don't know. I mean, I guess you know more in the later books, but I'm like, yeah, I don't know about that. I'm trying to think what else. What other theories? Maeve. You think Maeve's? What do we think about Maeve? She coming?
I forgot who that was for a minute.
That's fine.
I feel like she's definitely got a bigger part to play down the line. Because they built her up to be like this big, and we've only gotten a little bit of her so far. I'm hoping that we get a little bit more of the cadre. Hoping that it's not bad. But
yeah. I don't know. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm not excited for Tower of Dawn. Maybe I won't hate it so bad. But I just don't want to read it because I don't like Kale. I just hate that it's just him. Like, I mean, it's not. There's other people, but it's just like...
And it's long, right?
I mean, they're all long. Gosh. Hey, did you know that Onyx Storm is only like... I looked at the audiobook. It's only like 14 hours.
Oh, yeah?
And I was like, this book's not going to be that... It's not a 20-hour book. So I was like, So it's not that long. I was like, thank God.
I don't know. Even with, like, Fourth Wing, like, I read that in a single day.
You did. You flew through that one.
And then... So it took me a little bit on Iron Flame.
That was
But it's
long.
just because I couldn't get the time to actually sit down and read it.
Iron Flame was long, though, too.
But
this one is shorter, so I'm like, okay, good. Let's keep that.
I'm hoping that it's a little more well-rounded.
Yeah.
Like, I enjoyed Iron Flame, but I feel like she really rushed it.
Yeah, it was rushed. Take your time. Like, you're established now. Like,
we will wait.
You've got your, like,
as
you've
long
got
as
your
we don't
fans.
have to wait the rest of our lives, but...
And some people do. I mean, people are still waiting on George R.R. Martin to finish the series, so... All right, do we have reviews?
Yes, we do. I already have the 5-star pulled up. It's crazy how much is going on in this book. It's so cool that at this point in the series, we're invested in so many characters and subplots. Really cool to see all of the characters come together and cross paths. Also, everything Celaena is balancing with a fantasy plot is wild. I would simply crumble under the pressure. And that was by Allie. Now let's go to a 1-star.
Wow. Somebody really
I
like this
am
book?
still scrolling. Oh, hold on.
You could not have not liked this book that much. This is a good book.
Okay.
This is all in the same one?
Yes.
I'm almost curious to read it. Oh my gosh.
It's still going.
This is the whole page. Absolutely not.
And is that's still, yeah.
Oh my gosh. That's insane.
That was
Shout
so
out to you
long.
for writing that, whoever you are, because you were and like
That's
with
a whole
gifts
novel.
and everything. Yeah, like shout out to you. We should rate your review.
Okay. M rated this 1 star. I want to unread this book. I can't support an author who destroyed her characters and her series for the sake of a ship. I can't support an author who expects me to believe in the dumb excuses she wrote. For instance, Arabin, the greatest assassin, being careless to the point of getting killed in his sleep by a prostitute with almost no training. Also, the whole Nehemia thing being constantly used as a plot device to justify the diminishment of Kael's character. Not to mention that there were moments that read like poorly written erotica.
What?
Okay. And it's clear that the author has a creepy crush on one of her characters and self-inserts herself into the main character. This was everything I hoped the series would not be, not continuing.
Interesting. Okay.
Moments that read like a poorly written erotica.
Rowan biting her neck. That's the spiciest part of this whole book. They must not read spicy books.
It's not. Well, this was also back in 2015, so
Okay.
I don't think the smut was as.
I mean,
I don't think the
50
smut
Shades was out then.
Yeah, well, 50 Shades compared to some of the other books.
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's true. But for its time, it's spicier than this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, fair. Okay. All right. Well, this is our first finish of 2025. So thanks for listening. And our next book is an author request. It is The Hostage by, I think I'm saying this correctly, Samira Alexander. I think it's a thriller. I don't really know, actually. Let's see. Let's see if Goodreads will tell me what it is. It is, oh yeah, it's a psychological thriller. Ooh. It's in the title, actually. Yeah, so that is our next book, and this is all that we have for you guys. So we'll talk to you next time. Bye. Bye.